Hey everybody, Thursday afternoon, time for the weekly check-in here at the shop at Woodsmith. We got some fun stuff going on today, and it's game on. We're gonna start with Steve here and the project that he's working on.
Hey everybody. Well, I'm working on a little, well, it's not little, it's a big game, big round game called crokinole. And so we basically started with, I had to make a segmented ring out of 6 segments that looked, I started with this shape. And the glue surface is here. Route, you'll use a trammel on your plunge router and make the ring. The ring has a groove that captures this disc. Then this is 1/4" maple, and this has a partial groove all the way around that I'll fill with black epoxy. There'll be 8 brass pins that fit in here, and each one of these quadrants is worth different points. This is the gutter, and I don't have them yet. We've got them on order, but there's an 1¼ inch colored disc that you flick, and wherever it lands, you get those points. And it's a little more complicated than that, but you get the idea. So it's just meant to sit on a table. So I've still got to put the epoxy in, attach this, get the brass pins, but I'm closing in on it.
Okay.
He's hiding.
Hey everyone, so I was just hanging out at Dillon's coffee station with my coffee. So, progress on the Dillon Design Architect's Cabinet. I can find a plan that's buried somewhere. There's what it's going to look like. So if you watched last week, I was in the process of making this big heavy rift-sawn oak box a lot more heavier. So I think I've succeeded by adding 6 drawers to it, which this was a case of 1 step forward, 2 step back on these, because you remember last week I had this massive pile of rift-sawn oak ready to be milled for the drawers. So I tackled that on Tuesday and spent most of the day milling that, only for it to turn into boomerangs. So I had to go in Chris Fitch's burn pile in the end, so that was an expensive burn pile. So plan B was to use some MDF we happen to have some rift-sawn MDF veneer, so ended up using some of that instead, which is a lot more stable, but obviously a lot more heavier. So this heavier box went really heavy. What we're going to do with the treatment on top of this is, rather than doing an edging, hardwood edging, or edge banding it, we're going to paint it black, which is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to tackle that in a little while, but first I've got to do the false fronts on here, and I've got a big pile of rift-sawn there, and hopefully that is going to stay relatively straight. I've only got to mill this down to 3/4 inch rather than 1/2 inch, but that's pretty straight so far, so there's not much coming up here, so it should be pretty stable. So once the drawers are done, I'm going to work on the top piece, which is a top that goes up and down, and these legs slide up and down and they pin in place to the height that you need. I think Dillon's doing a little bit of a modification on this to enable it to tilt forward. And I think this is going to be made of more MDF, and then there's a cross-section frame that goes underneath it to keep it relatively flat. And then it's going to have black laminate on top of that. And then, if you watched last week as well, I showed you how these legs operate. So this is recessed in. This has got a dovetail edge to it, and then so is this. So this slides in there, and that is just trapped and it doesn't go anywhere. So this is going to be height adjusted with pins. So that is that. So getting closer. And guess what? It's going to be made even more heavier next week. If you haven't guessed already. So there's still more to add to it.
Okay.
Should we have a contest guessing the weight?
Yeah.
Alright, hang out over here in the photo studio. It's always a good week too when you've got a project wrapped up that you can talk about. As much as it is probably beneficial to see things in progress too, kind of get it back or insight into how things are constructed and what comes up along the way. But nevertheless, we have a finished product here. There's finish up photography on the shop coffee bar. I think last week we had some things assembled, but certainly there wasn't finish on it. I can't remember if there was laminate on it. The fronts of the doors and the top or work surface here are just coated with a laminate top. It's a micro dot laminate, so it's kind of difficult to see on the black, but it is textured. There's these small kind of dimples on the top here that give it a little bit of texture, which tactily makes it really nice to deal with and to work on, but it's also really easy to clean out. So got the doors on here. The cavities for these were, based around, again, a smaller size mini fridge like that, and typically a smaller microwave. If you have something already, of course, you can size things up or down a little bit. Both of these are on the smaller side, so I wanted to allow for a little bit of room for, again, if you have a little bit larger microwave and or fridge. So, but again, opportunity to make things or customize them the way that you need. All of the hardware I got from Home Depot, so I wanted everything to be very accessible. It does kind of fall in the category of a weekend project, so I also wanted to ensure that this is something that somebody could realistically build on a weekend. So all the joinery on here is pocket hole screwed, with the exception of these longer uprights that attach to the kind of main base down here. They're just face laminated together. Instead of using clamps, I just used some pin nails and then filled those holes and sanded them back. I was originally going to plan on painting the faces of these, just really any color that of my choosing, which that is still an option for, of course, the reader. So I figured by leaving it, it makes it seem a little bit more ambiguous. Maybe it'll give some people some ideas how to change it in their own shop. A lot of our furniture that we designed for the shop is used out of this Baltic birch. So again, I think it was just kind of attempting to leave it a little bit more of a blank slate and allow people to have a little bit more of a sense of imagination of how they want this to fit into their space. A couple other things that are going on. Instead of just using a Baltic birch back, we had some leftover, looks like red oak, riffs on red oak there. And I actually ended up using the B side of it just because I thought the color matched a little bit better, but visually, I think it's just a little bit more stimulating. It helps kind of break up the birch a little bit, and this does become a little bit more of a focal point since the coffee maker would be up here realistically, and this is where more of a work surface. So it draws the eye a little bit. It also contrasts the Baltic birch, which is nice. Again, kept things really simple. Something I've wanted to integrate into a project for a while, I just haven't really found the right one. I had designed I believe it was a small wall-mounted finishing cabinet, and I wanted to use these gas struts like you would see on the back of a car, basically on a hatchback, and they just weren't going to work, I think, because of how heavy the door was and the dimensioning. But I was able to integrate them here. So you open it up, and they just pop up. The hinges themselves are also soft close, which is nice. You don't really need that for the upper, but I wanted, for consistency's sake, to use the same hinges up top as I did down below, which are just a Euro style hinge. The nice thing about those too is they have two-way adjustments, so you get them installed. You can adjust them laterally. There's a couple setting screws in here on the faces that you can basically create a little bit more or less of a reveal just depending on how your fit is. So there's definitely room for adjustability there, which is really nice. Use the same ones down here. And then as far as the struts go, these ones are also a Home Depot product. There are 3 levels of adjustments on these. You can do them it's at an 80 now. I figured since it was a little bit taller of a cabinet, unless you're really tall, 80 was sufficient without actually hitting your head on it. You can adjust them to 90, and then also they have a 100-degree option as well. And really that's just dictated by where the placement is of these mounts on the interior, but those all come with the instructions with the actual struts. So kind of a cool feature, also highly functional, which I really like about it. I kept them off the bottom just because I wanted, you know, a little bit easier access, and it didn't really call for it. I don't really have room for them either, but I just wanted a way to conceal what was down below. So all in all, a pretty simple but fun project, very easy to build, and you know, I could very easily see this being in my shop. So drink a lot of coffee around here. Let's see, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. Outside of this project, always moving forward with others. We have shop notes in the works coming up, and so I believe I have a shop stool I'll be working on, and then I think there's some sort of shelving unit that might be meant for above a bench. Can never have enough storage, but those will be the 2 that I'm going to be moving to next, so maybe sometime next week we can take a look at those and see what I have in the works. Otherwise, just doing some of the fine-tuning stuff. I don't know if you want to call it fun or not, but all of this stuff has to get modeled. Of course the projects do, but inevitably the hardware does. So I'm in the process of modeling all the hardware, which can be a little tedious. What's even worse sometimes is getting these individual parts to constrain properly in the computer, which can be, again, extremely frustrating, but also very necessary for art. So just wrapping up some loose ends here, and then with the project that Marc was working on. So yeah, check back in with me next week, and thanks for joining us.
All right, there you have it for the shop update. Also, if you haven't heard about it, we're doing a tour of woodworking sites in the UK later this year in September. So you want to check that out. You can go to woodsmith.com and find out more about it. I'm going to be going along with it, as well as one of the senior editors from Fine Woodworking, Anissa Capsalis. She'll be heading along with us on that trip. We have a week-long, 8-day trip going on with a lot of fun stuff. You can check out the itinerary and find out more about it on the website. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.